Joining us on this episode is Traci Edwards. Traci is one half of a husband-wife duo focusing on adventurous elopements. From a career-changing trip to Iceland, living van life in the Southwest, and now settling down in Washington, her desire to keep creating outdoors in the spaces she loves shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. I'm Kyle Wilson, and this is The Photographer's Problem. Are you primarily an elopement business? Is that your main jam?
Only. Yeah.
Only elopements. Okay, wow. What does an elopement consider for you? Like, what's like, if two family members are there, does it go away from elopement to intimate wedding?
We're weird, and we don't like all these boundaries people do.
Yeah.
So, like, for us, it's more about the intent of what they're planning versus how many people and all of that. I would say, like, it's pretty 50-50 for us, where it's just the couple, two people, and then just the couple and some other people. And then we just shot, like, this year earlier, we shot a couple who did one day just them two, and one day it was like 70 people at a venue, which isn't our norm, but it just kind of transformed. And we're like, well, we're fine with it. Like, you're still doing all this for the right reasons, and like the things that matter still matter. Like, we're good. So it varies.
Was that something that organically evolved? I feel like people getting into this industry don't just accidentally fall into elopements. You kind of make a conscientious choice to do it rather than to do the other.
Yeah, I was actually photographing under a commercial studio. His name is Montana Pritchard in South Florida. So I was his studio manager and first assistant for PGA of America. So I was photographing golf. And I went to Iceland and was like, I saw an elopement. I photographed it. It was like a 10-minute ceremony before the sun even came up. Like, it was really dark out still. And I was like, this is cool. So I came back and quit my job and was like, I'm going to be an elopement photographer.
Wow, that's amazing. And how did you start? How did that, like, what was the first couple moves you made?
Yeah. So I moved to Arizona because I was like, okay, at the time, like, the only person I knew doing elopements was Maddie May and Ben Hosh. Like, those were the only two people I'd ever seen post anything about anything like an elopement. And I was like, well, neither of those people are in Arizona, and Arizona is beautiful and there's a lot of public land. So, like, I'll just move there and start doing style shoots and keep shooting golf and other things until I can build up the business. And so that's what I did. And then I renamed, so that was 2018. I renamed the business at 2019 at the end of the year and went full-time in like early 2020.
That's awesome. And would you say that, so you obviously really enjoyed a lot of aspects of the elopement within Iceland to say, hey, I really love this version of a wedding. Are there pieces of it that are intentional in the aspect that it's bringing you more joy, or that it's easier, or what's the thing that makes you like, oh my God, I'm really excited to go click this button with these people in this place?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different things, because like that was like what really sparked it was a quick 5-10 minute ceremony. And like, Iceland's really pretty and there's like places that leave you in awe, but we were kind of at just a very basic place. So it wasn't like a big adventure to get there or anything. And I think for me, it was like the ability for people to like freely express themselves was a huge thing for me. Because like, I had second shot for weddings previously and hated it every single time. Like, I've seen brides bawling their eyes out, scared to read vows in front of 100 people, or answer fighting, or like the groom is so drunk he's not helping put together the benches that need to be put together. So like, I don't know, it felt very freeing. And I think that was like the first straw. It very quickly really evolved into like heavy adventure for me. And then also my husband. And like kind of that connection to like outdoor space for couples who have kind of built their whole relationship on being in the wilderness together. And then also still like getting that space to like pour their hearts out. It was just, I don't know, that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And that you were able to really quickly notice that, because, so for me, I mean, I photographed almost 700 weddings at this point, and I'd say the first 5 years of that was golf courses and ballrooms and churches, and slowly realizing that these people are kind of being forced to conform to a type of wedding that their family and tradition and society maybe has said that they have to, and now they're financially wrapped up in it, and all I really want to do is stick these two people on a pretty lake somewhere and be like, why don't you guys just like love each other right here
Get married.
and then go home and have a party.
Right. It's two, like, to me, it truly is two separate events, and it should be two separate events because, like, a traditional wedding, I'm very opinionated, so like I have to watch myself a lot. But like, to me, a wedding is not about a marriage at all. And so I think separating those two things gives couples the ability to like, okay, we're getting married. Like, this is what that means. And then now we can just go celebrate that with everyone that loves us. It's two different things to me. Like,
I
and for a
also
lot of
think
our couples,
yeah, and we get a really unique perspective where you and I both know, and I think anyone that's listening, like there is a difference in just the mood and expression of a couple when the weight has been lifted of all the schedules and people and vendors and place and money and pressure of the day, that those photos
mm-hmm.
really are completely different than photos of somebody on a wedding
Right.
day. They're an entirely different, almost different people that you're photographing
Yeah.
if they were the same.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like you don't have to worry about, like, there's just so much I think that gets missed in a big traditional wedding setting because you're adhering to so many other people's emotions and not just sitting within your own. And, you know, it's kind of important.
Yeah. Where do you see, I think with traditional weddings and as a traditional wedding photographer, they have like a built-in expiration date as being for a career. I think that at a certain point, like for me, example, if I was 55 or something, it would be really hard to photograph cool 25, 30-year-olds in neat place. They'll be like, you're old, dude. We don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Do you foresee with elopements that you have a concern, or not concern, but like, do you have a plan running forward? You go, hey, we're going to pivot our business into this thing that's long term, or do you think you can just shoot elopements until the day you die?
Yeah. We think about this a lot. We talk about this a lot because, like, we're not young chickens in the industry. Like, we're 32 and 33. Like, we're already on kind of, I feel like, what the higher end of ages within the industry. And, you know, like, I think most of our couples right now are late 20s. And so, like, it's still very relatable. But, like, when we do have younger couples, like, I feel like already at this age, it's a little harder to maybe connect. But also just physically, like we just photographed an elopement this past weekend where we hiked in carrying 30-pound, 50-pound packs, scrambled up a massive gully, climbed 4 pitches of trad route, slept on the summit, wrapped down, hiked out. Like, I mean, you can do that as you get older if you take care of yourself, but it's going to be a little harder. And then also just like the ability to have a family. And so we think about these things and like, how do we make getting older and those things work with the job? And is it even possible? So like, I don't think we'll do this forever, but I don't know when it ends. It's very open right now.
The process of deconstructing, I feel like I'm very in it, of like, what does it look like to deconstruct my business in a way that, there's a bunch of overhead. I did the math recently. It was something like $4,900 a year to run everything bare bones. And I went, how do I get that number down so that I don't have to photograph 1 or 2 weddings a year just to pay for the existence of it? And at that point, I'm not even doing anything. How do I keep the website alive cheaply so that if someone does inquire, I can send them information and it's not all ad hoc? Do you have an idea of what you would pivot to or what might be like a different kind of income for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of the reason my business name is no longer my name, because that's what it was when I started, was the ability to grow a team and exit and just manage. So, like, that is an option for me, just how we've built the business. We don't know if we want to go that route yet, but that would be like an option. And then we could just be a planner or manager. We could do education. We could just be a planner. Like, there's other things we could do. But I think too, like Bill and I, like, since doing this, we've just learned so much about business and kind of fell in love with being business owners and having our own schedule. And I think there's a lot of potential that we would maybe exit from this business fully and start other businesses that are in different industries and fields. But who's to know? I'm not sure yet.
I'm always intrigued when someone's hyper niche. You guys are obviously very specific in your lane, and Thankfully for people like Ben Chaish, who like kind of sort of invented the modern elopement, that this entire category can exist as a standalone business. But I'm always really fascinated when someone says, "Hey, you're obviously a creative person," and
Yeah.
that shows itself in a variety of ways, I'm sure. But in this particular way, it's become an income. And what other creative field would get your attention?
Right. I don't know. I mean, I often think about like, would I shoot things like if we end up having a family, would I start being interested in shooting families? And I'm like, I just don't think so. I don't think like it just never even crosses my mind to like, oh, I'm gonna shoot newborns now or like maternity. And like we were traveling all over because we did van life until recently. And so like we just shoot wherever we got jobs. And like this year, very much, we're like, okay, we already know we need to pull back from that because it's just getting too much. Like we're tired. We would like to like have some normalcy, like you said, ride a bike, like it's like take the weekend off. And like if you're traveling, you just lose so many days. So like we're already kind of starting to pull back in that sense where we're like, okay, let's narrow down where we're working and when we're working. So I guess that's kind of step one into already like shifting as you're getting older.
That's I mean, just thinking about it is already one of the things. And there's a ton of decisions to be made to get to the next like kind of crazy adventure. What's been one of your better business decisions you think along the way here as you've been navigating this really specific lane of work?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many business decisions you make as you go. I think like I started the business on my own and I kind of knew I never really wanted to like do this on my own, but like I didn't have a partner at the time. So I think like asking my husband, well, my time, my just boyfriend, and like kind of encouraging him to get involved, like has been a huge blessing. Cause like I could easily travel and on my own and do this on my own and he could work a different job. But like getting to experience these things together has been just life fulfilling, but also I feel like business fulfilling. Like we're a couple getting to connect with a couple. Like we have a lot of people that book us that are like, we want two people, like we don't want one person. And it's added the ability for us to add in video, which we see a huge draw for. And I think it's just helped. Like it's definitely not for everyone, but for us, like it's worked really well and been extremely, I think, beneficial to the brand and what we offer and how we work and life.
Yeah, and if you were to bring in other people as a team, if that's something that you've obviously already been debating, would this be something that like, do you foresee the two of you both taking a backseat into this kind of like quote unquote managerial role, or the both of you still doing this adventure series together while still having a team?
I think we would maybe just like shoot less. Like we would, because the manager roles would end up taking more time. And I think just in general, like starting to slow down. So I think we would still shoot for a while if we did that. But eventually we would probably fully, I'm in our like 40s maybe.
Yeah. I don't know how to break it to you, but that is just around the corner.
Yeah,
No,
it
you're
really
fine.
is.
You got a decade to go. You'll be all right.
Oh yeah, I really like. I'm gonna quote another photographer here from their Instagram. Hopefully that's okay. I really like Cedar and Pines was talking about this like a while back, and they were like, "Why would we quit when we get older? Like we've worked so long, and we just become better and better at our craft." And like I've always admired that outlook of it. If you can figure out the happiness balance and connection balance with age, but like I feel like there are a lot of old photographers out there, depending on what industry you're in. Like, I mean, I've second shot for people in their 50s and 60s, like for commercial work and weddings and stuff. And I think you just end up finding your own, like people that'll go, I don't know. It's very interesting how it works.
There's all these stereotypes, and we've met the old guy photographer with his polo shirt and his brand embroidered in the shirt, and I know that guy. Mm-hmm. He's my dad. But we've definitely met that guy, and we don't want to become that. But there's plenty of opposing thoughts like that too. Like you said, in the commercial lane, I feel that there are so many older photographers because they've got this word of mouth business. They've got the experience, the credibility. People know that when they hire them, they're going to execute really, really well.
Good work.
And it's really, I think wedding photography, elopement photography, any of the above, is this boot camp for
Mm-hmm.
wild, unplannable photography situations, and you can translate that into so many other things. And
Yeah.
people get a little lost in just staying a wedding photographer, and you don't have to become the old boring person. You can still be
No.
the cool old person who shoots work too.
Mm-hmm. You just have to adapt. Like, just like you adapt your business, I feel like you have to adapt and learn. Like, like everyone talks about, we're kind of like the millennial season is kind of over almost in the weddings, and we're starting to get into Gen Z. And it's like, you just kind of have to learn how to like relate, I think. And if you can do that and balance all the things, then you can stay in it for the long run.
Yeah, I think adaptability. I mean, you already just mentioned that you're bringing video in, and I'm really thankful that I'm not photographing full time anymore, just for the fact that I've always really kind of been against a video, just because my quality of photo work is so high that to get the quality of video work would be such a long time to get there, and I'm just not interested in it. I'm lazy. I don't want to. I just want to be a good photographer. But if I was shooting now, I'd really need to incorporate it. And it sounds like that's something you guys have done. Has that been an easier or difficult thing to say, hey, we need to bring that into the picture?
I would be pretty honest in that like we don't really market it. Like we don't post it on Instagram really. It's like on one spot on our website at the very bottom. We don't market it. But like I think next year it's like 80% of our couples have booked it for next year. So it's like people want it. Like people really want it. And I don't blame them. Like we videoed our own elopement on our cell phone because we were backpacking 6 days. Like I wasn't carrying. So like, and we watch it all the time. We love it. So like, I think there's definitely the like understand appeal. Like in the modern technology, we watch videos all the time now. So like, getting to watch, I think back has become so normal. So like, it's definitely been helpful in the business sense, but that doesn't mean it's been easy. It's definitely been really hard. Like editing video is so different than photo, and it's very like that. I think has been our biggest pain point. Like filming it has been fun and fine, and you learn. Like there's a learning curve because it's different still, but our gear is like quadrupled that you take up the
Gear,
mountain like
batteries, and storage. Oh my
whole
gosh.
new thing. But it's fun, and I think really just the hardest thing is the editing process of it.
Have you both brought on that task of managing the editing, or is that just Bill?
So I am strictly photo, and Bill is video and like second shooter. And then we outsource for editing video because the time it takes I mean, we're both very full time in this business, over full time.
Full time
We're not editing.
and trying to manage your own relationship too. I'm
Yeah,
friends with enough
yeah,
video editors to see their life behind a computer. It's a lot of
yeah,
hours.
right. So, yeah.
For your elopements that you're getting so much video booking work as next year, is that like 3 minute short trailers? Is it something different that's kind of come about, or is it just kind of stick with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so we do like highlight films. Like we don't do, I know there's videographers that will do like full 10, 15-minute videos and they're beautiful. It's just not what we offer because like at that point, the attention span that I think you need and detail planning of the video, like I think it's better at that point to like hire someone that is specifically doing video. So like they can solely focus on that. But yeah, we do like 3 to 5 minute highlight reels, 7 minutes for a 2 day. So yeah, we had a couple this year book the highlight reel and they thought it was going to be vertical. And they were like, oh, like I just realized like all your videos you sent us were horizontal, but we want just vertical for like our Instagram. And I was like, oh, okay, so we can do that. But like you have to film that totally separate. So so we did that and it was fine. But I was like, wow, like I can see this really becoming very popular. But
That's what I was curious of actually, because I've never really been a proponent of video for the fact that I don't know the rewatchability on these things. If I were to sit down and watch a movie or a video, it's more than likely on my TV or my laptop or my big screen. And the only time I'm really
mm-hmm,
looking at video on my phone is if it's on Instagram or something. So I was
yeah,
curious if you're filming horizontally or vertically for deliverables.
yeah. Yeah, we've only had one person so far ask for it, but I could see like I mean that person was I wouldn't say an influencer, but her Instagram is like 400,000 followers. Like she's very big on Instagram. She's an athlete. So I think it, like working with people who have the following, I think it would be a huge push to start doing stuff like that. I think if you're just an average any person on Instagram, I don't really see that popping off, but you have the people who are hiring people to do like video phone content now at traditional weddings. So like, I don't know if that'll start coming into elopements or not as like
I was
a high
curious.
important.
Yeah, I was curious of the same. I haven't worked on a wedding with one of those, but I have friends that have, and it's a very interesting role. They
Yeah.
don't quite know their size and shape on the wedding day yet, if they're a passive role or an active role, and what the
Right.
timeline surrounding that looks like. And I'm really interested to see if that makes its way into
Progresses or not.
elopements. A piece of me thinks not, just because the kind of
Yeah.
person that wants to elope, those are like
Yeah.
opposing ideas, I feel.
Yeah. Because I think, like, especially like a New York wedding where someone has spent like $500,000 and, you know, all these details and things, like, I think at that point it almost becomes, this is my like opinionation coming out, like very show and tell. But like with elopements, it's like, especially like we have a lot of our couples are like, we don't even want our stuff on Instagram, like very private people. So like, I don't really foresee it. It comes back to the intention. Like, I just don't see it becoming a huge thing for this industry. Like, I mean, social media content is so big for running a business at this point. Like, we video so much of the day anyway for ourselves, which is another great thing about being a 2-person team. Like, I can get some content for reels without having to think about it. And we just airdrop that to them, and they're always pretty stoked about that. They're like, oh, I can send this to my mom. And I'm like, great.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I'm pessimistic that that will make its way, like you just said, into that environment. You know, my first kind of foray into talking about this at this niche level was Kat Eckelboom White out of Austria. Is really hyper specific about her niche and the type of clients that she books, and finding the ideal client for her ideal photography. And I really, as a casual elopement photographer, you know, I've had, you know, maybe a dozen or so. Even then, I really just don't foresee those types of people overlapping a ton. But who's to say? Who's to say in the next 5 years? You guys might be just shooting pure vertical videos out in Arizona.
Vertical photos. More vertical photos.
Yeah. We talked about it at the beginning a little bit here we talked about rangefinder. I don't think our initial chat's going to be in this cut, but we talked a bit about your rangefinder win. And the reason I reached out to you to begin with was you had won the International Wedding Photographer of the Year Awards. And the fact that you're submitted and won for rangefinder, you have a really successful business, obviously. Have you found, well, I'd just be interested in what your motivations are for submitting to awards like that one, and if you've felt any of the benefits from winning, submitting, any of that process.
Yeah, so I am an extremely competitive person within my like self. Like, it's not just like it's definitely a more competitive with myself than like the outer industry, because you can't get into comparison. Like, you just can't. So like with Awapati, if I'm saying it right, and a few of the others, like after rangefinder or outside of rangefinder, it's much been like, can I keep making work at this level? Because you can only win rangefinder once. It's very limited. So, but with rangefinder specifically, like when I first got into elopement business, like I saw, you know, Maddie win it, and then I saw the Foxes win it, and then I saw Henry too win it. And it was like, these are all like my favorite people in this industry, like people you're looking up to that are building the industry, and like work that you look up to. And I'm like, that would be amazing to reach that level. And so I think it kind of became for me like the rangefinder is like, you made it. And so it's like, I want to do that. Like, I want to feel like I'm doing something right and not just working a job and getting paid. Because my mom would always be like the year I didn't win, she's like, it doesn't matter. Look at all these reviews you have. And I'm like, that's great. But like within the industry, am I considered good? Like, because I went to school for like fine art and studied art history for a long time. And I always kind of think about like, you have artists that get recognized for like lifetimes from their paintings or photography. And as a wedding or elopement photographer, there isn't sort of like a recognition. And to me, it was like almost the recognition of like art. So I think that's why rangefinder specifically became important to me.
Yeah,
It became
and
like an
you still
obsession.
can. No, I honest. Okay, so truth be told, I feel very similar. The way I describe, I'm not a big goal oriented person, or I haven't been in the past, or I'm just
Yeah.
too flighty to maintain a singular one. But the way that I had viewed rangefinder as an award was kind of like this door at the end of a very, very, very long infinite hallway, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of look at it way over there. I can move a little left and I can move a little right,
Yep.
but if I go too far in either direction, I lose sight of the door. And so it gives me
Yeah.
movement, but not too much. And rangefinder was for me, like, you won, which is amazing. I was nominated once, and that's a neat process. And then I tried to get my consolatory prize of cover, but it was something I really wanted from just early. Or I like the metric.
Really.
I think the metric in this industry is hard to get. You can be like, oh, I have followers, but does the
Right.
industry agree that I
Right.
am one of the best?
Yeah. And it's like followers don't matter either, because it's like you can have 100,000 followers, so you might not be succeeding at business, or you may have I mean, until like recently, we only had like 7,000 followers on Instagram, but like we've been a six-figure business for years. Like it doesn't like social media, I don't know. But yeah, no, the process is really hard, I think, for rangefinder, because it's like you don't really know. Like you can look through what's won previously, but I don't know that that actually helps you very much.
Yeah, you can
um,
glance, and because I think there, like we talked about in the beginning, the vagueness of what matters in the competition. But in
mhm.
my opinion, it was actually really educational for future awards that I
Oh yeah,
might submit to. And the,
yeah,
the conversation was, this is a photo awards competition being based upon the photos. The story, the everything else, the variety of photos doesn't even matter. Are the photos you're submitting of winning caliber? And if not, then you're not going to win. And
yeah.
I think more competitions
I
would do good to be specific about that.
I think it taught me a lot about voice within my work. Like I look at my work now after having gone through the rangefinder process twice to like just 2 years ago. And it's like two different photographers, completely different. Like my editing changed significantly. My how I crop, how I edit, how I curate has changed significantly. And like I feel like it really helped me establish a style within my work and like how I like to shoot and what images are important to me or how I want to capture moments or like what do I want to focus on. And I think it's overall, if you don't get it or if you do get it and you're going through that process, like you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn a lot about your work. You're going to learn a lot about submitting to other things. And like I took the time to do a lot of like mentoring ships like throughout that whole 2 year process. So like every few months I would pay to do a portfolio review with people higher up in the industry of the judging world or like editor world. Um, and like that gave me so much perspective, like having someone else really sit with you and be like, I'm going to be honest and tell you no, yes to things that you've pulled that you think are of quality. And then like going through and like explaining like why this may not stand out in a competition that has like 50,000 images in it. And like those things, I think just really help train your eye to see what a profound image might be. It's all
Yeah.
opinions
Do
too.
you do you have other things? No, no, I don't even think it's an opinion. I think it's
Yeah.
probably a fact. The fact it has
Yeah.
absolutely
No.
changed your business. Mine,
Yeah.
I don't know that I took away that big of a change from it, just because I had such a good relationship with an editor from Junebug for a long time that they were like really always. I had like a built-in person critiquing my
Yeah.
portfolios I was sending, so I kind of had that going into it, but. Are there other things that you've done, whether they be competitions or within your business, that you feel have also opened your eyes or taught you like big learning experiences about the voice of your work, or how you that affect how you shoot and work and edit now?
Like other competitions or just in general things?
Competitions, experiences, anything that's happened from the get go from your business through
Yeah.
rangefinder to now.
Yeah. I mean, so we submit to Junebug top wedding photos every year, and that's always an exciting time. Like I always love seeing those. I'm like, okay, this is so exciting because it's like work from all over the world, and so different too. Because some people like it's weddings and elopements, and I think it's inspiring. So like I think the bigger competitions that are happening more often is a source of inspiration, because it's you're going through your work, pulling what's best, but then at the end you're also looking at all the winners' work. And I think it's like, oh, like you can get new ideas or just start thinking about different perspectives. Like if you go through those 50 images from the years that Junebug has been doing that, and you're like, why did these 50 images win? That will teach you within your own work to like look at stuff. And I think that has helped me a lot. And like, so when I met Bill, he had no knowledge of anything with photography. And that's always been kind of my route of education with him, is like, look at really strong work and think about it. And that will help your brain when you're shooting, think backwards almost, like, how do you create really strong work? And like when you're in a location, looking at lines, looking at horizons, looking at the light, looking at what textures your couples have on and what textures are around you and what colors are near you and what colors are they wearing. Like just all these things that will naturally you think about as a photographer, but like training those instincts, because how else do you grow if you're not trying to push yourself or look at work that has pushed the limits?
Yeah, I fully agree. It's I'm a avid mood board collector, and once in a blue it's copying an image directly because I'm inspired by it and I think it's really cool, and other times it's just a place for me to put my eyeballs and see new photos and get an idea of what I might want to make next. What is, in the namesake of this podcast, what's your problem? What are you guys working on right now? What's kind of the thing that's in process?
I think, oh man, we're doing a lot right now behind the scenes. Bill and I, like, we went transient, like we were very transient van life years. And then we bought a house very remote in the middle of nowhere, which has kind of made us still stay transient because it's very kind of empty here. So we're like, okay. So I think we're in this like situation where we're trying to change our lifestyle and trying to change our financials significantly. So we're in a state of growth, which is not a problem. That's a great thing, but it's a problem until you figure out how to make it happen, right? Like when you have these massive, massive goals on your board. Like we have a whiteboard, and like every year we sit down and write down everything we want to achieve business-wise and personal-wise. And like it's pretty stacked this year, but like it's a little wild, which is good. So like we're just trying to figure out how to significantly grow the business. And like there's only 2 people. Like we shoot this year, I think we're shooting 28 elopements. Last year I think we shot 30, and the year before that 48, and the year before that 70.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you say significantly grow, to kind of poke in even further, is that for the purpose of stacking the retirement fund, for the purpose of making the house that you live in well nested, for having kids, for traveling? What's the purpose of the growth?
Yeah. So we're trying to decide if we want to have kids, which is a huge thing. I think like in this industry, if you decide to have kids, like you have to cut back how much you're shooting, especially as a husband and wife team, if one of you isn't going to stop shooting. And then we want to move, but we don't want to sell the house we have now. We want to turn that into an investment property. So like we're basically just trying to like build a different lifestyle where we can live in one place and not travel a lot for jobs. So like shooting locally, which means a shorter season for us instead of shooting all year. So like balance, work less, but make more, essentially, to balance a lifestyle that we're aiming for. So yeah, just trying.
And sometimes it's work less and make like, I remember looking at my numbers one year, and it was really interesting to see that I had shot something like 25 less. I was shooting 20 or 30 weddings less, but making like 30 grand less as well. Yeah, and I went, exactly. I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. I'm at that particular rate of flow. I was like, these are great. I would much rather shoot a wedding and have a 3 or 4 week gap in between, and then go shoot another versus the age-old like Friday, Saturday, Sunday triple header deal, like where you're just, even when I was 22 or 23, I'm tired, and that affects everything.
I have a
Yeah.
friend in Germany,
Remember you're old now.
and
Remember.
yeah, he's like, we're taking the whole month off. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. Like, you're not going to shoot for a whole month? I'm like, I want to do um yeah, we're tired. But like, I think for us, a lot of it too is just diversifying income, because it's like both of our incomes come from this elopement business. And then like this business is very successful. Like, we're not worried, but like, you just never know. And it would be nice to have diversification and like figuring out how that works out for us right now, on top of like just getting to build things to be, like you're saying, like starting to aim towards retirement and things like that. So it's something
Yeah,
I
I
think we
think
don't
it's
talk about enough in this industry, like the
a
finances,
thousand
like,
percent.
yeah,
I think
because
data
it's,
backup and financials
mhm,
are things that are the most boring in this job, but they are like my most fun thing to talk about, because most people don't really do the quick math of, okay, how much do I need per year? How many weddings am I willing to shoot? Divide those two numbers, and that's the price of your package. And if you
taxes,
can't hit that
all the
price
things.
package,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Like it's, yeah, it's like you can't just, you have to know all your numbers before you can make any
yeah.
decision.
It's kind of like school. They should be teaching taxes and balancing a budget in high school and middle
Exactly.
school. But and our industry also, there's only been a few people I think of that have really ever openly discussed their financials in a way that wasn't bragatory or get rich quick. And so it just kind of remains hidden. And even me, I mean, I'm only in the last 2 or 3 years have I said, hey, I need financial knowledge, and
Yeah.
I didn't have it prior. There wasn't a place to get it, especially in this job.
It's like one of my biggest pet peeves. So we run the Love on Earth workshop too. We own that. And like in the workshop industry of the elopement wedding world and like coaching industry, it's like the big tagline is be a 6-figure wedding or elopement photographer, be a 6-figure. And I'm like, what does that really mean though? Like, are you telling people they're going to take home 6K? Because there's a big difference. I mean, 6 figures, like there's a big difference between bringing it in and making it yourself within your business. And like that's never clarified. And I think that that's not a good way to kind of teach photographers. I think it's also that shouldn't, like, your goal can be bigger than that too.
Yeah. And
And that's
also
okay.
six
Like we don't
figures is, yeah, 6 figures is quite vague. I just chatted earlier on a
say,
podcast this morning where I said, I used to have a few other business partners, and I learned pretty quickly, retrospectively, unfortunately, that this job does not bring in enough funds to split evenly across 3 or 4 humans. It does barely bring in enough funds to split down to some associate people. But if you're going to throw in a husband-wife duo and then say 6 figures and own a home, well, and it's 2024 and eggs are $11, so
yeah,
maybe it's going to be 6 figures and some change.
right. Yeah, I think it is definitely, that's been a big thing for me. And like, you know, like talking earlier about, well, what do you do after this? It's like, I feel like I feel like the education side of this world is oversaturated right now, but it's oversaturated with a lot of fluff, I think. And I think that there's a lot that could be better about, like what you're saying, finances. Backing up stuff is like, I think we could all just talk about it more and people could learn. But like the finance part of it, I think is so big, like even just taxes and understanding how it works. Like you can always hire someone, but if you don't know what's going on, are you fully getting the most out of your business money wise and stuff? And
Yeah, I recommend to any of my friends that ever ask about workshops or anything like that, that you kind of check in and ask, what are the tangible takeaways from this, so that you don't
yeah,
leave a workshop feeling inspired, but you leave a workshop
yeah,
with websites, resources, email templates, tax
right.
codes. Like, what can you
Yeah,
leave with and go do tomorrow, and
right.
not just feel good about your life?
Yeah. Not just, yeah. Tangible numbers, not just an idea of what you could be doing. So yeah.
Yeah. Is that something
It's
that you
better.
guys include in your Love on Earth workshop? Is that anything that you guys talk
We
about within
haven't
there? Is like, but
actually. So like the Love on Earth, we have a May Flynn photo, and she was also in the Ayupati Awards. She used to be a therapist, so she actually talks a lot about mental health, which no one else is doing in workshop space. And so like we love having her there. I think it's so important for this industry, especially if you work alone. And then we have Malachi of Shell Creek photo, and he teaches SEO, but he like deep dives into it so well, and it's great. I kind of am a catch-22. Like I kind of teach everything and we keep our workshops small so I can teach very specifically what people are wanting to know. So like the last workshop we did, I taught a lot on like the process. So like once you have a couple booked, what is the whole thing that you're going through until the very end and what does that look like? Especially gearing towards like helping people get their reviews up. And I also talked a lot about social media and using it as a strategy and not just to like get numbers, but to get bookings. So yeah.
No, I think that's great. That's exactly what people should be. I think the mental health thing, balancing. I mean, when I started going to therapy, one of the specific things I sought was a therapist who knew what Instagram was and why it was something that wasn't just a tool. Like it wasn't just an app on my phone. It was very much so a thing that was impacting my well-being while also being the thing that supplied my ability to pay rent and order pizza.
Right.
And so
yeah.
mental health and taxes and data backup and SEO, it's all the boring parts, but those are the parts that really separate Jordan Voth from some guy down the road with a camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I think, what is the like statistic? It's like 3 years is kind of the lifespan of a typical photographer's business. And it's, you can definitely go a lot longer. And I think numbers are kind of the most important thing.
Yeah, I fully agree. Well, definitely a workshop, Love on Earth workshop is definitely worth checking out.
Maybe we should maybe we'll start working on that.
I can't even be a voice. I can't even be a voice of it because I feel like my budget knowledge is still adolescence. But I really wish I had been taught or exposed to it much earlier in my career. Just seeing how I am now with money compared to what I thought I knew or didn't know then, I am pretty blown away. I actually had a business that remained successful because I really had no idea what the heck I was doing. I was really winging it. I got really lucky, and not everybody does, you know?
Like, I mean, we both come from families where like money's not really discussed or like money wasn't handled well, like not well off families by any means. And it's like, you have to change your perspective on it and you have to learn and you have to like start looking at them and fully understanding everything. And it takes time. Like you're not going to do it overnight. It's not going to change that quickly. And it's okay to do things wrong. And then you just have to keep growing and learning, and books are your best friend.
Yeah. Psychology of Money. Really, really good. That's one of the ones that I've been into. It's just so the fact that anybody from any background can still succeed and make it as long as you look at things pragmatically and not from a singular source of experience, then you can be a photographer and have a retirement and own a house and an investment property in Arizona.
There's a lot of people doing it. That's kind of the thing, right? Like if you look at the industry at this point, like there's so many people doing it. And I think too, and this is like, I don't know, we've kind of started to look at like a wedding photography business as almost like a startup to a more financial other options or businesses or portfolio or whatever, because you can make enough in this industry to have extra. But if you're fueling that into like homes or other businesses, like I think Jordan Voth owns a clothing company. I don't know if you like know of Jai, but like he has like 4 or 5 other businesses. And I know there's several other photographers with Airbnb companies. And like, so it's like, if you kind of like take it and run with it and start putting it in the other places, then maybe you don't even have to think about what you do after you're a wedding photographer.
I agree. So many people, myself included, for a long time would see, okay, the way to be a successful photographer is to be really, really well known, and all you do is this. But once you peel back the layers, on Jordan or Jai or somebody like Sam Hurd or whomever it might be, that you'll see, oh, they're actually like, they've got a lot of other things going on and plenty of other photographers who you've never met. There's that guy who shoots 30 weddings a year in a small little town at $3,500 a pop, and he's got 2 or 3 other things going on, and nobody's ever heard of him. But you know what? He's got a house, and it's paid for, and his kids are going to school, and he's got a business that totally works.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you can use it as a resource of like how to become a business-minded person, and I think that's hard because as an industry, we're creatives. So it's very different than numbers and, but creative, you can come up with creative business ideas, but I think if you utilize what you've learned building your business, you can do a lot of things.
Fully agreed. I'm really excited to see whatever you do next in your soon coming source of retirement. And thanks for taking the time today to chat. This was really, really great. And you've got such an amazing business, and obviously it's going so well. And I'm excited to see what comes next for you guys.
Yeah, you never know.
Awesome. Thanks, Traci. Thanks so much.